Okay, let's dive in. Today, we're really unpacking a key report. It gives us a pretty comprehensive look at the state of global ports in 2024. It's the World-Class Port Comprehensive Evaluation Report 2025.
Hmm.
This is a joint thing, right, from the China Economic Information Service and the Water Transport Research Institute of the Ministry of Transport.
That's right. And it's not brand new. They started this back in 2021. The goal, oh, well, it's pretty ambitious, objectively evaluating port development across the globe.
And how do they do it? The report mentions a structured system, blending, hard numbers with qualitative analysis.
It's a mix, quantitative and qualitative. They try to capture the full picture, not just throughput figures.
Okay, so the headline finding for 2024, what's the big takeaway?
Well, overall, global ports, they actually performed pretty well. The average score for the 34 sample ports they looked at, it climbed steadily, up about 2.1% to 67.7 points.
So pretty resilient then, despite everything.
Seems that way, generally speaking.
Right. So our mission today in this deep dive is to pull out the most important nuggets from this report. We want to understand that big picture for global ports last year and really zero in on what this report identifies as the hallmarks of a truly world-class port today. This is basically your guide to cutting through all the data and getting to what really matters.
And what's interesting is how the report itself frames its work. It positions itself as quite an innovative effort in port evaluation. It aims to provide valuable guidance, a reference point, for world-class port development everywhere.
So setting a standard almost.
Sort of, yeah. And they're quite upfront about it being an exploratory process. They actually welcome feedback, which I think speaks volumes about the complexity of trying to measure something as dynamic and multifaceted as global ports.
Absolutely. Okay, before we get into the nitty-gritty of specific ports and indicators, let's set the scene a bit. What was the economic and trade backdrop for ports in 2024?
Yeah, good place to start. The report describes 2024 as a year with a mild global economic recovery. There was some improvement in global goods trade, and service trade was actually quite active.
But it wasn't all smooth sailing looking ahead.
No, definitely not. Looking ahead to 2025, the report flags some pretty significant risks. We're talking uncertainty around U.S. tariff policy, for one, and escalating geopolitical tensions, which seems to be a constant theme these days.
Right. And the report cites the IMF on this.
It does. It points to the IMF's April 2025 World Economic Outlook report. And notably, the IMF actually revised down its 2025 global growth forecast.
Okay, revised down from what to what?
From 3.3% down to 2.8%. And that reflects a less optimistic view across the board. Developed economies saw their forecast drop from 1.9% to 1.4%. And emerging and developing economies, they were revised down too, from 4.2% to 3.7%. So a general cooling off predicted.
And how does that connect to actual trade volumes in 2024?
Well, the report uses UNCTAD data, that's the UN Conference on Trade and Development. For 2024, total global trade hit about $33 trillion. That's up nearly 4% from the previous year.
Right.
Services trade was, as I mentioned, a bright spot. It was up 9%, reaching $8.7 trillion. Goods trade saw more modest growth, around 2%, totaling $24.3 trillion.
And China's role in that goods trade?
Huge. The report really highlights China's continued massive role. Total import-to-export value was $6.1 trillion, up 5%. That maintained China's position as the largest goods trading nation for the 8th consecutive year, actually.
Well, 8th year.
Yeah, accounting for roughly a quarter of the global share of goods trade.
And that risk you mentioned, the U.S. tariff policy, the report gets specific on that.
It does. It mentions the proposed U.S. reciprocal tariff policy from April 2025. The idea is a minimum 10% baseline tariff, potentially higher for countries with large trade surpluses with the U.S.
Okay, and the potential impact.
The report cites a preliminary estimate from the WTO, the World Trade Organization. They reckon this policy could lead to a shrinkage of global goods trade volume by about 0.2% in 2025.
Just 0.2%. That doesn't sound like a huge hit initially.
Well, the source notes that's a preliminary estimate, and it also mentions that figure could potentially climb maybe up to 1.5% shrinkage if the situation escalates or triggers broader retaliatory measures.
I see. So real uncertainty there.
Definitely. The report reflects that multiple international organizations, IMF, OECD, WTO, are expressing concern. They see this adding significant pressure and uncertainty for international trade and investment growth.
Any other forecasts mentioned?
Yeah, the OECD, for instance, is cited predicting a slowdown in global GDP growth, not just for 2025, but carrying into 2026 as well, slowing from 3.2% in 2024 down to maybe 3.1%, then 3.0%.
Okay. And it's important, as you said, the report is just relaying this information.
Absolutely critical. The report is impartially presenting the forecasts and analyses from these international bodies like the IMF and OECD. It's not endorsing a political stance, it's outlining the potential economic context and risks as described in the source materials.
Got it. So, okay, despite those economic headwinds, those potential risks, and, major disruptions like the Red Sea shipping crisis, the Panama Canal congestion, the ongoing conflict in Ukraine, global ports actually showed resilience in 2024.
That's the picture the report paints, yes.
Uh,
Overall, strong development momentum. Certain regions were definitely affected, like around the Black Sea, Mediterranean, South America. But the overall trend was positive.
and the numbers back that up.
They do. The top 20 global container ports, these are the really big players. They collectively handled 415 million TEU in 2024.
Remind us, TEU is
20-foot equivalent units. It's the standard way to measure container capacity. So 415 million TEU handled by the top 20. And that figure was up nearly 7% year on year, almost 6.8% to be precise.
That's pretty strong growth. Where are these top ports located? Still mostly Asia.
Overwhelmingly, Asia held 15 of those top 20 spots. And remarkably, all of the top 10 container ports were in Asia.
All top 10 in Asia. Wow.
Yeah, Europe and North America, they each had just 2 ports in that top 20 list, and Africa had 1.
And growth was widespread among them.
Mostly positive, yes, but some really stood out. The report highlights ports with double-digit growth in container throughput. We're talking about places like Ningbo Zhoushan and Shenzhen in China, Long Beach and Los Angeles in the U.S., Tanger Med in Morocco, and Tanjung Pelepas in Malaysia. They saw really significant jumps.
Any major milestones reached?
A couple of big ones, yeah. Shanghai Port broke the 50 million TEU mark for the first time. That's just enormous volume.
2 million.
And Singapore Port exceeded 40 million TEU, also very significant.
Any shifts in the rankings? New entrants.
A few notable changes. Port Klang in Malaysia entered the global top 10 for the first time. That's a big deal. Tanger Med, as mentioned, was the only African port on the list, showing its growing importance. And Suzhou Port, interestingly, maintained its position as the world's largest inland port.
Okay, let's dig into the regional performance a bit more. You mentioned Asia's dominance.
Right. Let's break it down region by region, connecting back to those global trends and disruptions we talked about. Starting with the Pacific West Coast, which really means China and Southeast Asia. Here, the report sees continued potential being released. China's scale is just staggering. Total cargo throughput in 2024 was 17.6 billion tons. Container throughput hit 330 million TEU.
Still number 1 globally.
By a long shot. Number 1 for total cargo and for containers, and they've held those top spots for many years now. In the global top 10 rankings, China has 8 ports for cargo throughput and 6 for container throughput.
Incredible dominance.
It really is. Specific examples. Ningbo Zhoushan was number 1 globally for cargo throughput, 1.38 billion tons for the 16th year running. And Shanghai, number 1 for containers, exceeding that 50 million TEU mark, has been top for 15 consecutive years.
And Southeast Asia. You mentioned grows there, too.
Yes, and this is a really interesting dynamic. The report links the growth in Southeast Asian ports directly to the shift of labor-intensive manufacturing, think electronics, apparel, furniture out of China, and into countries like Vietnam, Malaysia, Indonesia.
So supply chain shifts driving port growth.
Exactly. Several Southeast Asian ports entered the global top 30 container ports. Malaysia's Port Klang, which we mentioned, entering the top 10 overall, and Tanjung Pelepas. Also Jakarta Port in Indonesia. And then the top 50, you have Vietnam's Ho Chi Minh Port, Kai Met Port, and Haiphong Port, all showing really high-speed container throughput growth, reflecting that industrial shift.
Okay, let's cross the Pacific. What about the Pacific East Coast, North America?
Right. The main story here, according to the report, involves the ports of Los Angeles and Long Beach in California. Their combined container throughput in 2024 was nearly 20 million TEU, 19.95 million to be exact.
And you mentioned they saw big growth.
Huge growth. LA Port handled 10.3 million TEU, up around 20%. It's been the #1 container port in the Western Hemisphere for 25 years straight. And Long Beach Port handled 9.65 million TEU, up even slightly more, 20.3%. That was a new historical high for them.
Why such a massive jump?
The report points to two main reasons. First, strong U.S. consumer demand driving imports. Second, diversions. Congestion at the Panama Canal due to drought conditions and the Red Sea shipping crisis forcing ships to avoid the Suez Canal meant more cargo favored the more reliable and accessible U.S. West Coast ports during that period.
So benefiting from disruptions elsewhere.
To some extent, yes. It highlights the interconnectedness and how bottlenecks can shift flows.
Okay, moving on to the Indian Ocean region. The report says it's accelerating.
Yes, driven by its strategic location, but also significant infrastructure upgrades. India, in particular, is seeing rapid port growth. Mundra Port handled over 7.5 million TEU, making it India's largest container port.
And future plans there.
Big ones. The report mentions the planned Vadhavan port. There's a $2.3 billion investment from MSC, the shipping giant, planned. The goal is a capacity of 15 million TEU by 2035. It has the potential to become a major future hub.
And the Red Sea effect.
That played a role here, too. Rerouting ships around the Cape of Good Hope meant more transit traffic for ports in the region. Sri Lanka's Colombo port, for example, saw its throughput jump nearly 12% to over 7.5 million TEU. South Africa's Durban port also saw an increase, about 4.3%, hitting 2.5 million TEU.
But challenges remain.
Yes, the report notes Durban faced significant congestion issues. Its infrastructure struggled to cope with the increased demand, limiting its ability to fully capitalize on the diverted traffic. It underscores the need for capacity investment.
And geopolitical factors. You mentioned Russia earlier.
Right. The conflict in Ukraine and Western sanctions on Russian energy exports led to a major shift in where Russia sends its oil. The report provides a specific statistic. India's imports of Russian oil surged in 2024, hitting 92 million tons. That's apparently over 20 times the volume seen before the conflict. This oil primarily flowed through Indian ports like Sikka, Vadanar, New Mangalore, and Mundra.
A dramatic shift in trade patterns.
Very dramatic. Shows how geopolitics directly reroutes major commodity flows.
Okay, how about the Mediterranean region? Sounds like it was a bit of a mixed bag in 2024.
It really was, primarily due to the Red Sea crisis and resulting supply chain adjustments. The report details a kind of east-west split in performance.
How so?
Ports in the eastern and central Mediterranean, those heavily reliant on Suez Canal traffic, saw throughput decrease. Piraeus Port in Greece is given as an example. Its container throughput dropped by 8.1%.
Because fewer ships were coming through Suez?
Precisely. But contrast that with ports in the western Mediterranean. They actually benefited, becoming new transit hubs for ships avoiding Suez or seeking alternative routes. Valencia in Spain saw throughput jump 14.2%, and Tanger Med in Morocco, which we already mentioned, saw a massive 18.8% increase.
So winners and losers from the same disruption.
Exactly. And the report also notes growth in Turkish ports, like Izmit, up 25% in containers, and Kocaeli, up over 7%.
Interesting regional variations. Now, the Atlantic West Coast, the Americas, what drove performance there?
Again, the report attributes the significant throughput growth primarily to strong U.S. consumer demand. The top 3 U.S. East Coast container ports all did well. New York, New Jersey was up 11.4%, Savannah up 12.6%, and Houston up 8.4%.
Strong numbers across the board there. And South America.
Brazil also showed strong performance. Itaqui Port handled over 220 million tons of cargo, and Santos Port, the country's largest container port, exceeded 5 million TEU for the first time ever.
Okay, last region. Europe's Atlantic East Coast. How did they fare?
The report describes an overall steady growth trend here. Hamburg Port in Germany saw cargo up over 12% and containers up a modest 1.3%. Antwerp-Bruges, the merged Belgian port, had cargo up 2.3% and a solid container growth of 8.2%.
And Rotterdam, Europe's biggest.
Rotterdam had somewhat mixed results, according to the report. Overall cargo throughput actually decreased slightly by 0.7%, but its container throughput saw a small increase of 2.8%.
Why the dip in cargo?
The report points specifically to a huge drop, 26%, in coal throughput. This is linked directly to Europe's ongoing energy transition away from coal and also a downturn in some industrial markets impacting demand. So a specific commodity shift impacting the total figure.
Fascinating how these broad trends, energy transition, consumer demand, geopolitics, play out differently in each region's ports.
Absolutely. It shows ports are really at the crossroads of all these major global forces.
Okay, so that gives us the big picture overview. Now let's get into the evaluation itself. The report uses 9 specific indicators to assess these ports, going beyond just those raw throughput numbers we've been discussing.
Exactly. And this is where we get into the methodology behind identifying those world-class ports. These 9 indicators attempt to capture a more holistic view of performance. Let's go through them.
Great. What's the first one?
Indicator 1, port-weighted throughput. This isn't just raw tonnage. It measures the overall cargo handling capacity, but considers different types of cargo, weighting them differently. So a ton of containers might be weighted differently than a ton of bulk ore, for example.
To get a better sense of overall activity and value, perhaps?
Sort of, yeah. It aims for a more comparable measure across ports handling different cargo mixes. The global average for the sample ports on this metric was 5.8 billion weighted tons in 2024, up 5.3% year-on-year.
And the leaders.
The top 3 were Ningbo, Zhoushan, Shanghai, and Singapore. No huge surprises there, given their scale.
But who saw the fastest growth in this weighted throughput?
This is where it gets interesting. Tanger Med showed spectacular growth here, up 70% in cargo overall, 19% in containers, clearly driven by those Red Sea diversions, making it a key transshipment hub. Mundra Port in India was also up strongly, 36% cargo growth, 14% container growth, linked to India's broader economic expansion.
Any others?
Yes. Ports like Long Beach, Haiphong in Vietnam, and Los Angeles also saw strong growth, over 13% each. On the flip side, Piraeus saw a decline of 6.2%, again reflecting that direct impact of the Red Sea crisis reducing traffic through the Suez Canal.
Okay, indicator 2.
Indicator 2, port shoreline utilization efficiency. This is a key measure of operational intensity. It basically looks at how effectively the port uses its quay length, its docks. It's measured in TEU handled per 100 meters of quay line per year.
So how much bang are they getting for their infrastructure buck, essentially?
Exactly. Higher numbers mean more intensive use of the existing berths. The 2024 global sample average was 192,000 TEU per 100 meters, which was up 5.4% from the previous year.
Who leads in squeezing the most out of their shoreline?
The top 3 were Qingdao, Shanghai, and Ningbo, Zhoushan, all Chinese ports. The report attributes their lead to highly efficient operations, advanced management, and often 247 working schedules.
And who improved the most here?
Long Beach Port had the fastest growth in utilization efficiency, up 20.3%. Los Angeles was close behind at 19%. Tanger Med also up 19%. And Tianjin Palapas and Ho Chi Minh Port both improved by over 15%. This suggests significant operational improvements or handling more cargo on existing infrastructure.
Got it. Indicator 3.
Indicator 3, customer service efficiency. This evaluates factors that matter directly to the port users, the shipping lines, and cargo owners. Things like vessel waiting times at anchorage and the percentage of direct calls versus feeder services.
So how quick and convenient is it to use the port?
Precisely. The 2024 global sample average was 83.6 points on our scale, which was actually a slight decrease, down 0.4% from the previous year.
Oh, interesting. Why the decrease globally?
It was a mixed picture. The report highlights that China's 10 sample ports actually improved significantly. Their average direct call rate hit 89%, and average anchorage waiting time was reduced to just 19 hours. That's a 1% overall efficiency improvement for them. Shenzhen jumped to number 1 globally on this metric, and Qingdao cut its waiting time by a massive 9 hours.
So if China improved, who dragged the average down?
The report points to issues elsewhere. Overloading and congestion at some Northwest European and Western Mediterranean ports, largely due to those Red Sea diversions, led to increased waiting times. Hamburg saw waiting times increase by 54 hours on average, Rotterdam by 7 hours, Valencia 7 hours, Antwerp-Bruges 3 hours.
Wow, 54 hours extra wait in Hamburg. That's significant.
It is. And it wasn't just Europe. Strikes at North American ports also impacted waiting times. Vancouver saw an increase of 24 hours and New York, New Jersey by 8 hours. So these external shocks, diversions, labor actions directly hit customer service efficiency in several major hubs.
Really shows a vulnerability. Okay, indicator 4.
Indicator 4, cross-border trade costs. This looks beyond just port handling charges. It measures the overall efficiency and cost-effectiveness of the entire trade process associated with the port customs, documentation, compliance time, etc.
How easy and cheap is it to actually move goods through the whole system?
Exactly. And here, the news was much better. The 2024 global sample average was 71.4 points, a significant increase of 6.4%. So trade facilitation seems to be improving overall.
Who excels here?
The top three were Rotterdam, Antwerp, Bruges, and Singapore. The report explains their high scores are largely due to things like free port policies, which eliminate many trade barriers, streamline customs, and maintaining low compliance times and costs, a high degree of trade facilitation overall.
In China's efforts, you mentioned free trade zones earlier.
Yes, the report details China's strategy here. By the end of 2024, they had established and were operating 22 free trade zones, plus accelerating preparations for the Hainan Free Trade Port. These zones are designed to promote digitalization, smart upgrades in customs processes, and better data sharing between customs, ports, and shipping lines, all aimed at optimizing the business environment and improving trade facilitation, thus lowering those cross-border costs.
So strategic focus on reducing friction makes sense. Indicator 5.
Indicator 5, port economic contribution. This tries to quantify the port's impact on the local and regional economy, but importantly, per unit of cargo handled. It's not just about total impact, but the value generated per ton or per TEU.
So how much economic activity does each bit of cargo stimulate?
That's the idea. The 2024 global sample average was 60.6 points, up 3.0%. The leaders here were Singapore, Shanghai, and Rotterdam.
And why are they leading?
The report points to their highly developed port-based industrial clusters, things like petrochemicals, steel manufacturing, shipbuilding located near the port, and also high-end shipping services, transaction platforms, finance, insurance, legal information services clustered around the port. These add significant economic value beyond just moving boxes.
And China's progress.
The report notes China is making progress by building world-class port clusters, developing these associated industrial chains, and improving port-city integration. This is leading to increased economic contribution scores for its ports. Also mentioned is the significant increase in economic contribution for some Southeast Asian ports, like Haiphong in Vietnam, Mundra and Nhava Sheva in India, driven by the rapid industrial development happening in those regions.
So it's about building an ecosystem, not just a terminal.
Exactly. Port city integration and industrial clustering are key.
Indicator 6.
Indicator 6, port connectivity. This measures how well connected a port is to the global shipping network. It uses UNCTAD's Port Liner Shipping Connectivity Index, or PLSCI. Basically, it reflects the frequency and breadth of shipping routes calling directly at the port.
How easy is it to ship goods to and from anywhere in the world via this port?
That's the essence of it. The 2024 global sample average index value was 836.2, which was up 2.2%. Higher connectivity is crucial for a hub port.
And the most connected ports are?
The top three were Shanghai, Ningbo, Zhoushan, and Shenzhen. Again, highlighting the centrality of these major Chinese hubs and global networks.
Any big movers in the connectivity rankings?
Yes, the report highlights significant rank improvements for India's Mundra port, which moved from 21st to 18th globally, and Nhava Sheva port moving from 23rd to 19th. That shows their growing integration into global liner schedules. Dalian port in China also improved, from 26th to 24th.
Any drops?
A couple were noted. Tokyo port dropped from 19th to 22nd, and Haiphong port from 20th to 23rd. These ranks can shift due to changes in shipping line alliances, route adjustments perhaps related to disruptions, or the addition/removal of direct services.
Okay. Indicator 7 must be about tech.
You guessed it. Indicator 7, technology leadership. This evaluates the application of advanced technologies within the port automation, digitalization, AI, etc.
How smart is the port?
Essentially, yes. The 2024 global sample average was 71.3 points, showing a slight increase of 0.5%. Progress, but maybe slower overall compared to other areas.
Who are the tech leaders according to the report?
Singapore gets specific mention for using digital twin technology to improve operational intelligence and for building the massive, fully automated Tuas port, aiming to be the world's largest.
In China?
China's achievements are also highlighted. The report states China had built 52 automated terminals by the end of 2024, leading globally in terms of scale, operational efficiency, and the technology level deployed in these terminals. Shanghai Port is given as an example, integrating 5G, AI, big data, using self-developed intelligent operation control systems, and deploying new generation low-carbon smart port equipment.
So serious investment in automation and digital tech in these leading ports.
Definitely. It's seen as crucial for future efficiency and competitiveness.
Indicator 8, getting close to the end.
Indicator 8, green safety level. This evaluates two critical aspects: environmental performance and operational safety.
Sustainability and safety combined.
Right. The 2024 global sample average was 78.5 points, up 0.9%. So again, steady improvement here.
And the top performers in green and safety.
The top three were Rotterdam, Antwerp, Bruges, and Hamburg. European ports often score highly here, reflecting strong regulatory focus and investment in green initiatives.
The report gives examples of these initiatives.
Yes, several really interesting ones. Rotterdam's Carbon Capture and Storage CCS project is detailed. They plan to capture CO2 from industrial processes in the port area, transport it via pipeline, and inject it into empty gas fields under the North Sea for permanent storage.
Wow, CCS in a port, how much CO2?
The target is 2.5 million tons of CO2 per year initially, which they estimate will reduce the port's direct emissions by about 10%. It's a major undertaking.
Other examples.
Singapore is mentioned for offering financial incentives, port fee waivers for ships using zero-emission or zero-carbon fuels like hydrogen, electric power, ammonia, biofuel, or green methanol, provided they don't stay too long.
Using fees to encourage green shipping.
Exactly. And Chinese ports are active too. Qingdao Port developed a container carbon footprint accounting platform. Ningbo Zhoushan is working on a green electricity terminal using wind and solar power with battery storage and exploring new power systems. And Shanghai Port conducted China's first successful international container ship green methanol ship-to-ship bunkering operation.
So a real push across the board on different green technologies and fuels.
Yes, from carbon capture to alternative fuels to renewables and better monitoring.
Right.
It's a major focus area.
Okay, the final one, Indicator 9.
Indicator 9, port reputation. This is a bit different. It's based on media coverage and public perception of the port.
How is a port seen by the world?
Essentially, yes. In 2024, Singapore Port ranked #1 here. International media apparently called it a benchmark for resilient ports, particularly praising its stability during events like the Red Sea crisis.
Interesting. Who else stood out?
Ningbo Zhoushan Port's reputation significantly increased, gaining attention for its fully autonomous automated terminal and its green energy bunkering capabilities. Positive innovation stories helped its image.
And the flip side, negative impacts.
Yes, the report notes ports whose reputations suffered due to negative news. Kaohsiung in Taiwan was mentioned in relation to congestion issues. New York, New Jersey Port's reputation was impacted by news of strikes. And Baltimore Port, tragically, suffered reputational damage from the major bridge collapse accident.
So operational issues, labor disputes, major accidents, they all directly impact how the world sees a port.
Absolutely. Reputation is hard-earned and easily damaged in this industry.
That's a comprehensive set of indicators.
Right.
It really shows that evaluating a port is about much more than just counting containers or tons.
Exactly. It's about efficiency, cost, connectivity, technology, sustainability, safety, economic impact, and even perception.
So, based on performance across all these indicators, how does the report categorize the leading ports?
It groups them into tiers. At the very top is the world-leading tier. For 2024, this includes Singapore, Shanghai, and newly added Ningbo Zhoushan.
Why did Ningbo Zhoushan join the top tier?
The report highlights its high efficiency and intensive shoreline utilization, which we discussed. Also, it's continuously improving port-adjacent industrial clusters and its integrated shipping service functions. It showed strength across multiple key areas to elevate its position. Singapore and Shanghai, of course, maintain their spots due to their sheer scale combined with excellent performance across most indicators.
Okay, and below that top tier?
There's the world frontier. This includes major global players like Rotterdam, Busan, Qingdao, Shenzhen, Antwerp, Bruges, Hamburg, Guangzhou, and Hong Kong.
And they stay in this tier because
of their strong performance in specific critical areas, maybe outstanding customer service efficiency or leading green safety levels or significant port economic contribution. They demonstrate excellence in key dimensions that keep them at the forefront, even if not quite reaching that absolute top tier across the board, according to the specific evaluation.
it really underscores that achieving world-class status, by this report's definition, requires broad-based excellence.
Precisely. It's a composite score reflecting performance across that whole range of demanding indicators.
To make this more concrete, the report includes some case studies. Let's look at the first one, the Zhoushan Chulangu Ore Transit Terminal. This is presented as an example of a world-class specialized terminal, right?
That's right. Not a general container port, but highly specialized in handling iron ore. It's part of the Ningbo Zhoushan Port Group, which we just mentioned moved into the top tier overall. Shulanghu's role is critical as a transit hub for iron ore, feeding China's massive steel industry.
And its location is key.
Incredibly key. It's situated right at the T-junction of the Yangtze River Economic Belt and China's coastal economic belt, a crucial intersection for north-south shipping and the huge Yangtze waterway system. It's also close to international shipping lanes and the Yangtze estuary, and boasts excellent natural deep water conditions at 25.1-meter channel depth. The report calls it the natural deepwater port closest to the Yangtze estuary.
Built to handle the biggest ships.
Absolutely. Its infrastructure is impressive, over 1,700 meters of quay length. The standout feature is its capability to handle 2 fully loaded 400,000-ton ultra-large ore carriers simultaneously.
Number one, that's massive.
It is. They achieved that for the first time in November 2024, using its 2 dedicated 400,000-ton unloading berths. It also have loading berths and a huge storage capacity of 6 million tons. In 2024, it handled nearly 73 million tons of iron ore.
Okay, the report highlights 4 specific features that make it world-class. Let's break those down. First, advanced infrastructure.
Yes, and the core of that is the dual 400K ton capacity we just mentioned. Being able to work 2 of the world's largest bulk carriers at the same time is a huge advantage in efficiency and throughput. The berth specifics and channel depth enable this unique capability.
Makes sense.
Second feature, leading transit efficiency and bonded blending base. This covers operations. They've optimized water-to-water direct loading, moving ore directly from the big ocean vessel to smaller river barges for over 30% of their operations. This reduces handling, potential cargo damage or loss, and saves energy.
Efficient handling.
Very efficient. The report notes Shulanghu has served all 68 of the 400,000-ton ore carriers currently operating globally. That's quite a claim. And their unloading efficiency is record-breaking. 33 hours to unload a fully loaded 400K ton vessel, which is stated as being among the forefront of global ports.
And the bonded blending part.
This is about value add. Beyond just transiting the ore, they have processing capabilities, blending different grades of ore, grinding, screening to meet specific customer needs. And importantly, it's developed into China's largest single bonded blending base, meaning they can do this processing under customs supervision without import duties being paid immediately. They achieved this leading status just 3 years after starting these operations in 2016. It's a smart business model innovation.
Okay, third feature. Island plus smart terminal and island operation model. This sounds like the tech part.
It is, and it's pretty futuristic. The ultimate goal here is achieving unmanned unloading operations. They're using what they call a dual remote control mode for the giant ship unloaders and also the cleanup equipment working inside the ship's holds.
Unmanned cleanup. How does that work?
Since January 2024, they've implemented unmanned cleanup operations using remotely controlled loaders. This involved overcoming a significant technical hurdle, ensuring stable 5G signal transmission and coverage within the challenging environment of a ship's hold, which can block signals to allow for reliable remote monitoring and control of mobile machinery.
So controlling machines deep inside a ship from afar.
Exactly. And it's all tied together by their smart production control system called ITOS and an automated equipment control system, IECS. These systems enable ultra-long distance control, potentially from off-island locations, and manage the entire automated operation chain, unloader to stacker reclaimer to conveyor belts.
And this island plus an island operation concept.
The report emphasizes how this island plus construction breaks geographical limitations. Because Shulanghu is on an island, developing effective remote operation creates a new model for running unmanned bulk terminals, especially those in isolated or island locations. They call it the Shulanghu solution for this island operation challenge. It's about leveraging tech to overcome physical constraints.
Really pushing the boundaries of remote automation.
Yeah.
Okay, the fourth feature.
Green environmental port. This focuses on sustainability. The report details measures taken to build an environmentally friendly ecological port. The focus is on promoting green energy use and upgrading facilities to improve energy structure and resource efficiency.
Just specific examples.
Yes. They've implemented a multi-dimensional cloud monitoring and intelligent control system specifically for quart dust, a big issue with handling dry bulk like ore. This system links online dust monitoring directly with automated dust suppression controls. They also have a smart cloud platform for online supervision of water resources, including monitoring sewage treatment and ballast water handling.
So using tech for environmental control, too.
Right. The aim is scientific dust control and achieving zero wastewater discharge. This commitment led to its recognition as a 4-star green port by the China Port Association in 2023. It shows specialization doesn't preclude a focus on green practices.
That's a fascinating look at a specialized terminal. Now let's shift to the second case study. The Port of Rotterdam, Europe's giant.
Indeed. The Port of Rotterdam, often called the gateway to Europe. Its location is incredibly strategic, at the confluence of the Rhine and Meuse rivers, making it a vital water and land transport hub for Western Europe. Its 2024 throughput figures confirm its scale: 454 million tons of cargo overall and 13.82 million TEU in containers, easily maintaining its position as Europe's largest port.
And the report highlights 4 features for Rotterdam too. Let's go through them. First, developed transport network and gateway to Europe.
This is fundamental to Rotterdam's success. It has an incredibly comprehensive collection and distribution system roads, extensive rail connections, pipelines for liquids and gases, and crucially, its inland waterway network. This network reaches all of the Netherlands, of course, but extends deep into the European hinterland.
How far and how fast?
The report states it can reach major West European industrial and economic centers within 24 hours, and even more distant inland European areas within about 48 hours. That reach is critical. Specific infrastructure includes the Betu Rail Line, a dedicated 160-kilometer freight line connecting directly to Germany, and the wider European rail network. And the Rhine River Inland Waterway Network is described metaphorically as a 1,000-kilometer conveyor belt, moving goods efficiently into Europe's heartland.
What's the transport mix like?
In 2024, the modal split for hinterland transport was impressive. 53% of containers moved via rail and inland waterway. That highlights the importance of these non-road options for efficiency and sustainability.
Any specific innovations within the port network?
Yes, the report details the Container Exchange Route, or CER. This is a dedicated 17-kilometer closed road network within the port area itself. It connects key container terminals, depots, warehouses, and customs facilities. The idea is to streamline the internal movement of containers between different points, reducing reliance on public roads and improving efficiency. It strengthens Rotterdam's container hub competitiveness and serves as a reference model for smart port logistics globally.
So optimizing internal flow as well as external connections. Makes sense. Second feature for Rotterdam.
Digital innovation and application. Automation pioneer. Rotterdam has a long history here. The report points out it was home to the world's first automated container terminal, the ECT terminal. Since then, it's continued to innovate with the Euromax terminal representing third-generation automation and the RWG automated terminal, which was the first to achieve carbon neutrality.
Automation isn't just for containers, though.
No, the report also mentions the EO terminal, which is an advanced automated dry bulk terminal. It's capable of 24-hour unmanned operation and can provide sophisticated services like washing, screening, and coal blending automatically.
And their broader digital strategy.
They leverage big data, the Internet of Things, IoT, smart control systems, and advanced computing. A key element is the ECT e-services platform. This digital platform integrates all the participants in what they call the Port of Europe services, network shipping lines, forwarders, truckers, terminals. It digitizes logistics information, documents container status updates, aiming for seamless online-offline integration of the entire container logistics process. They've been investing in digitalization for a long time.
A deep history of tech adoption. Third feature.
Green low-carbon port construction. Global leader. This is another area where Rotterdam is often seen as being ahead of the curve. The report emphasizes its long-standing focus on environmental issues. It mentions the Rotterdam-Singapore Green and Digital Shipping Corridor established in 2022, aimed at accelerating the use of sustainable fuels and promoting decarbonization and digitalization on that key trade lane.
And the carbon capture project you mentioned earlier.
Yes, that's a flagship project detailed here again. The 2024 CO2 Capture and Storage, CCS project, aims to capture industrial CO2 emissions within the port, pipe it about 20 kilometers offshore, and permanently store it 3 to 4 kilometers below the seabed in empty gas fields.
Remind us of the scale.
The initial target is 2.5 million tons of CO2 per year, projected to cut the port's emissions by 10%. It's a massive infrastructure project for decarbonization. Additionally, the report highlights a successful ship ammonia fueling operation conducted in 2025, positioning Rotterdam at the forefront of developing bunkering infrastructure for new clean energy sources like ammonia.
Really tackling decarbonization head-on. Okay, the fourth and final feature for Rotterdam.
Developed port-based industries. Regional economic engine. This connects back to the economic contribution indicator we discussed. Rotterdam excels at leveraging its port advantages to develop strong adjacent industries. Major ones include refining, chemicals, shipbuilding, food processing, alongside logistics, information technology, and a full suite of shipping services.
Specific examples of clusters.
The report details the world-class port-based petrochemical cluster. It covers over 60 square kilometers along the Meuse River, attracting over 40 major chemical and petrochemical companies, including giants like Shell, ExxonMobil, BP. It hosts 4 major oil refineries and 13 large storage and distribution companies. This makes Rotterdam the world's 3rd largest and Europe's largest refining base, and a crucial global center for oil pricing and ship bunkering.
And shipping services.
Yes, there's a significant cluster of shipping service industries providing everything a ship might need. Classification societies, inspection services, supply companies, chandlers, repair yards, crew change facilities, and more. It offers a true one-stop shop for vessels.
And the economic impact of all this.
The report cites figures from the Port of Rotterdam Authority itself. In 2023, the port and its related industrial activities reportedly contributed 40.5% of the regional GDP and a very significant 8.2% of the entire Netherlands' national GDP. It truly functions as a major economic engine.
Those 4 features paint a very clear picture of a comprehensive, highly developed and influential port.
Absolutely. It showcases the different facets: connectivity, technology, sustainability, industrial integration that contribute to its world-class status.
Okay, so having looked at the indicators in these detailed case studies, the report also synthesizes some key trends shaping global port development moving forward. Where does the industry seem to be heading?
Right. The report outlines 6 major trends that are influencing ports globally. It's a good way to look towards the future.
What's the first trend?
First, there's an increased national focus on ports as maritime hubs and strategic nodes. This is driven by the recent experiences with global supply chain instability and rising geopolitical uncertainty. Governments are increasingly viewing their major ports not just as economic assets, but as critical infrastructure for national security, energy supply, and even military logistics.
So ports becoming more central to national strategy.
Exactly. The report mentions several examples of national strategies reflecting this. The EU's concept of integrated European ports emphasizes their role as economic and social anchors, potential military defense infrastructure, and future energy hubs for things like hydrogen or offshore wind. Germany has its national port strategy with 5 focus areas: competitiveness, becoming a sustainable energy transport hub; digital transformation; workforce training; and infrastructure expansion maintenance.
Other examples?
Singapore's Next Generation Port 2030, NGP 2030 plan, focuses heavily on the Tuas megaports automation, integrating technology, ensuring stability and efficiency, and sustainability. Japan's Port 2030 vision emphasizes connecting to the world, creating new value, and acting as a platform for the 4th Industrial Revolution. So you see this common theme of strategic importance and future-proofing across different regions.
Okay, second trend.
Second, there are challenges for traditional core business alongside growth in high-value services. The report suggests the traditional business of just moving cargo is under pressure. Why? Slower global trade growth, supply chain restructuring, shifting manufacturing locations, and the rising costs associated with decarbonization.
So pressure on both demand and cost sides.
Precisely. Demand side, potentially slower throughput growth. Supply side, increasing costs for green investments. The report argues that ports need to adapt by finding new cargo types and, crucially, developing new business models. This means exploring derivative and extended services, things that add more value than basic handling, like the blending and processing we saw at Shillonghu, or advanced logistics, data services, etc.
Shifting up the value chain.
Essentially, yes. It requires balancing short-term profitability with the significant long-term investments needed for the green transition. The key seems to be differentiation, refining operations, and collaborating more closely across the supply chain to capture value in these higher-margin service segments.
And number 3.
Third, frequent geopolitical conflicts and extreme events demand higher port resilience. This builds on what we've already discussed. Events like the Russia-Ukraine conflict, impacting energy flows and food controls via sanctions, and the Red Sea crisis, accelerating supply chain restructuring and causing major disruptions like the drop in Suez traffic and the boost for some Southeast Asian ports. These are becoming more common.
And it's not just those big conflicts.
No, the report also mentions other disruptive events impacting ports. Major accidents like the Baltimore Bridge collapse, labor strikes causing delays, and the ongoing impact of U.S.-China trade policies. All this uncertainty means resilience is paramount.
How are ports adjusting?
They're strengthening multimodal transport networks to offer alternatives. They're increasing storage capacity, especially for strategic goods like food and energy. And they're fostering more regional cooperation, sometimes through combined port models where nearby ports collaborate more closely. The report concludes that future competitiveness will hinge on supply chain resilience, digitalization, and how well ports align with national strategic goals.
Resilience is key.
Yeah.
What's the fourth trend?
Fourth, there's a noticeable shift from incremental expansion to stock restructuring in the port and shipping industry. This is manifesting as a significant increase in merger and acquisition (M&A) activity.
Who's acquiring whom?
A key pattern highlighted is leading shipping companies transforming themselves into integrated logistics providers. They're moving beyond just ocean freight, sea, to control more of the chain, land transport, warehousing. They're doing this by horizontally acquiring port terminals, inland logistics hubs, and freight forwarders. The goal is to gain end-to-end control and reduce the costs and complexities of multimodal transport.
So vertical integration by the shipping lines.
Exactly. And this is leading to increasing industry concentration. The report predicts a future structure where huge shipping alliances dominate the main ocean trunk lines, large port groups control the key hub nodes, and these integrated logistics companies, often originating from shipping lines, cover the end-to-end service delivery.
Fewer, bigger players controlling more of the system.
That seems to be the trajectory.
Fifth trend. Must be related to green tech.
Spot on. Fifth is that ports are accelerating the layout of new energy bunkering facilities. The driving forces here are regulations. The report specifically mentions the EU's emission trading system, ETS, now including shipping emissions, and the full implementation of the International Maritime Organization's IMO, Carbon Intensity Indicator, CII, and Energy Efficiency Existing Ship Index, EEXI.
Putting real pressure on shipping companies to decarbonize.
Urgent pressure, yes. And this translates directly into demand on ports. Ships will need places to refuel with cleaner alternatives to traditional bunker fuel. So ports need to provide bunkering facilities for fuels like liquefied natural gas, LNG, green methanol, potentially hydrogen, and ammonia in the future.
So ports are investing now.
Major global hub ports certainly are. They're accelerating investment not just in the physical bunkering infrastructure, but also in the related supply chains and safety protocols for these new fuels. The goal is to become attractive bunkering centers for these next-generation vessels and thus secure future shipping routes calling at their port. It's a competitive necessity now.
Okay, and the sixth and final trend.
The sixth trend focuses on progress in new generation information technology brewing industrial change. This brings together technologies like the Internet of Things, IoT, mobile internet, big data analytics, cloud computing, and artificial intelligence, AI.
The smart port concept again.
Precisely. These technologies are combining with modern port functions to create truly smart ports. The report states that leading ports and shipping companies are deeply applying these technologies, moving beyond pilot projects to build technology-intensive smart ports. The ambition is for these systems to be international, operate at scale, and be fully systematized.
What's the ultimate vision here?
The report describes a goal of creating a smart, large logistics system. This envisions a future where resources across the entire logistics chain are highly integrated, information is fully utilized in real time, operational efficiency is significantly increased, and the market coverage is wide. It's about using technology to achieve a level of optimization and integration far beyond what's possible today.
So technology fundamentally reshaping the industry.
That's the clear message.
Okay, that's a lot to take in regarding the future. Let's bring it back to the report's core question. After analyzing all these indicators, trends, and case studies, how does the report ultimately define what makes a port world-class today?
It provides a concise definition. A world-class port, according to this report, provides first-class services to drive regional socioeconomic development and meet people's needs. It's a leader in safety, convenience, efficiency, green aspects, and economy, and it has world influence.
So, a broad definition covering service, impact, performance, and influence.
Yes. And building on that, the report synthesizes 6 key characteristics that contemporary world-class ports possess. These characteristics really link back to the indicators and case studies we've discussed.
What are those 6 characteristics?
First, they are safe and convenient. This clearly links to indicators like customer service efficiency, low waiting times, direct calls, and green safety level, and features like the smooth operations we saw highlighted.
Okay.
Second, they are smart and green. This directly connects to the technology leadership indicator Think Automation, like at Shulanguz Island, plus Wenonu Digital Twins in Singapore and the Green Safety Level Indicator, with examples like Rotterdam CCS project, alternative fuel bunkering, and the environmental monitoring systems.
Third characteristic.
Third, they are economically efficient. This relates to the Port Economic Contribution Indicator, the importance of industrial clusters and high-value services seen in Rotterdam, and the Cross-Border Trade Costs Indicator, highlighting efficient trade facilitation and the benefits of free port policies.
Makes sense.
Fourth, they possess strong, guarantee, reliable operations. The Chinese term used implies reliability and robustness. This characteristic can be interpreted through the lens of resilience, which was a major theme in the trend section. Think of Singapore's reputation during the Red Sea crisis, maintaining operations despite disruptions. It also relates to the port's strategic importance and alignment with national strategy, ensuring it provides reliable service.
So dependable even under pressure. Fifth.
Fifth, they are world advanced. This is a synthesis of leading performance across multiple indicators. It reflects the technological innovation, the operational excellence, and the global influence demonstrated by those top-tier ports and the case studies like Rotterdam and Zhoushan Shulangkou. They are setting the global benchmark.
And the sixth characteristic mentioned earlier.
The report separately lists green and safe as key attributes as well, reinforcing points 1 and 2. It underscores that environmental performance and safety are not just components, but fundamental pillars of being world-class today.
So it really drives home the point that achieving world-class status is a truly comprehensive endeavor. It's not just about size or throughput volume.
Not at all. While weighted throughput is one indicator, excellence is required across efficiency, connectivity, technology, sustainability, economic impact, safety, and reliability. It's about holistic performance and influence on a global scale.
Well, this deep dive has certainly highlighted the incredible complexity and dynamism of the global port industry. It's amazing how these hubs are constantly reacting to, but also shaping, the global economy and geopolitical currents.
Absolutely. Ports are caught in the middle of immense external pressures, trade shifts, climate change, geopolitical tension. But they're also driving internal transformation through massive investments in technology, sustainability initiatives, and that relentless pursuit of efficiency and resilience. They're far more than just places to load and unload ships.
They really are vital nodes in our global supply chains, powerful engines for regional economies.
And increasingly, as we've seen, crucial hubs for technological and environmental innovation. They are test beds for automation, digitalization, and the shift to new energy sources.
So to leave our listeners with something to think about.
Well, consider this. How the health and advancement of these global ports, shaped by all the complex forces we've discussed today, everything from trade wars and geopolitical crises to autonomous cranes and green methanol fuel, how all of that directly impacts the availability, the variety, and the cost of the goods that arrive at your doorstep day in and day out.
It really brings it home.
And maybe reflect on what the report's strong emphasis on resilience and strategic national importance means for the future reliability of the global trade we all depend on, especially in this increasingly unpredictable world.